Okay, let's talk about the three ArcShell homes. This is an important concept. So there's basically three ArcShell homes that you need to know about, or that we're going to refer to when we talk about ArcShell. We're going to talk about the delivered home, the global home, and the user or node home. And these are referred to in code, or your code if you're using them, using these variables. So you have the Arc home, Arc global home, and Arc user home variables. So this provides us with a system of precedence and scope, basically. So for example, if you make changes to the user home, often, not always, but usually those settings will override any settings in the global or delivered side. So if I develop a module and I provide some default values in a configuration file, that would be considered delivered. You would just create a configuration file of the same name or create an object of the same name in your global home, and now you can override those delivered settings. So it gives us an easy way to build a module and then give you the ability to override the settings. Well, one of the things you want to probably avoid is using the user home at all. Because usually whatever you can do in a user home, you could just do in the global home, but you might need to add a little code. Now, since most of the configuration files are shell, you can actually write if-then-else statements, case statements. You can call various functions within ArcShell to check the environment. And so you can actually just write code in your configuration files to set the settings for particular nodes, and that gives you a single source of documentation that is in on your primary development deployment image of ArcShell, so that you don't have to go out to other nodes to find out what's different. But we'll get into that more later as we actually do some other things. So this gives us a system of precedence and scope. It's important to realize that the global home lives within the delivered home. So this global home is actually within this delivered home. And the reason we do that is because when we distribute ArcShell out to the remote nodes, we're basically just packaging up this home, which includes your global home, and then pushing it out to the other nodes. So it's obvious that the global home needs to live within the delivered home if we want to push those changes out easily to the other nodes. The user home does not, it lives outside the delivered home because we don't want to distribute this to the other nodes. So that will live outside of that delivered home. Okay, so in the videos you're going to watch, most of the videos from here on out, I'm going to show you, I'll be working off my development copy of ArcShell. And so my ArcShell home, my home is media sftemp ArcShell. And this is actually a Windows folder that I have mounted to my Ubuntu VM. So that's my home. My global home is going to live right underneath that, and so will yours. So wherever you installed ArcShell, there will be another directory called ArcShell under your root directory. Why do I have three of those? That's not there. Okay. And this is my global home, and you can see that. So here's, if you look at my cursor here, under folders up in the left, we see ArcShell, that's my install location, and then we see another ArcShell directory. This is my global home. Okay, and then my user home is media sftemp Ethan. It lives outside of all of this, and that is mounted right there. You can see that in my left lower corner of my window. And this is not the default location. The default location when you do an install, like we did in the last video, is home, your username, and then ArcShell. But it can be moved, and I'll show you how to do that some other time. But it's very easy to move your user home. You don't have to use that default location, but we kind of need a default location to initially set that up to keep installation simple. In the last video, I was installed as user TST. I'm not going to do that. I won't be working with TST directly. I'll be installing to TST in this next video. I'm going to be operating out of my current development account, which is Ethan, but you'll see that in the next video. So that's the recap here. We got three homes: delivered, global, and user or node. Here's the variables that you would use to refer to those in your code. This provides us with a way of doing precedence and having scope of changes and things like that. So when we make changes, most of the time we're going to be doing it in ArcShell, and we'll be doing it in here. This is where we'll be making changes. So Okay, hopefully you understand that concept. If it's not clear, just ask some questions and I'll try to clear it up and maybe provide better examples. Okay, thanks.